Hi, my name is Kelly Wayment. Today we're going to make a 3D tiny tulip, which is a 3D paper craft. This tulip can be put in a little half vase that comes with the design and put inside a frame, or you can just make multiple tulips to put in a vase. Let's go into the supplies we'll need. You'll need some needle tip pliers that have a wire cutter. Some needle tip tweezers will be handy. We're going to use the Silhouette spatula tool and the Silhouette scraper tool. And then you'll need some other things like some white tacky glue, a hot glue gun, a soft surface for pressing. This is just a piece of craft foam, and something like a mouse pad would work. We're going to use some floral tape and 24 gauge paper covered wire. And then we'll use some colors of cardstock. So one pattern paper that will be for the vase, and then you'll need a tulip color. Today I'm using yellow, and then something like white, green, orange, and black. If you want to put your flower in a frame, you can use any type of frame. This one is a 6 by 9 inch frame, but you can choose how you want to mount that. And we are using the Cameo Plus and a Cameo Plus mat for that. And now let's go ahead and get into the software. All right, so first we're going to open up the design. This design is number 433983 in the design store. So it's called the Tiny Tulip in Half Vase. I've already downloaded this, but if you haven't yet, go ahead and add it to your cart and purchase it. And so here we are in Silhouette Studio. I'm going to go to my library, and there's lots of ways to find it. I could type in the search bar tulip. I can just type in the design number, 433983. That finds it, so we'll just double click to open. And here we are on the screen. I've got the Cameo Plus as my machine. So the Cameo Plus is a great machine. It's bigger than the regular 12-inch Cameo, and for me, especially with paper crafts, bigger is better. I could also use the Cameo Pro, but the Cameo Pro for paper crafts is maybe just a little too big. You have to make sure you have space for it. The Cameo Plus at 15 inches is really awesome because it's small enough to find room for it, but it's big enough that you can fit a lot on your mat. And that's what we're doing today, is we're going to fit all of these pieces on the mat and just cut all at the same time because they're a similar paper weight. All right, so when I'm trying to fit everything on the mat, what I like to do is increase the transparency. So over here, I've got my machine set as Cameo Plus. I have my cutting mat as Cameo Plus, and then I've just got my media size set to the auto 15 inches. I want to be able to see where these go, and so I like the grid, but I want to see exactly where the lines are on my mat. So I'm going to use the transparency slider and slide it over so I can actually see the grid from my mat. I'll zoom in just a little bit. So now you can see exactly where those grid lines are. The other thing you need is to make sure that you have your show cut border on. You want to make sure that this red line is showing so you know where the boundaries are for what you can cut. All right, so let me go back and look at this full screen. This piece right here is going to depend on if you are using the frame or not. So you would make this piece to fill whatever size of frame you're using. So I have a 6 by 9 inch frame, but the actual dimensions that I have room to put this paper are 5 1/4 inches wide by 8 inches tall. So that I'm going to cut out of white, and I'll put that down here on the lower right corner. These yellow pieces are going to be cut from the same paper, so I'll put them in the upper left corner. And I'm just making sure, I'm going to just put these on the grid itself, so I'm just going to make sure that these fit on the grid. The black piece of paper I can put just in the upper right corner. The orange I can put a little bit down. So I'll be matching this up with the actual paper I'm using in a little bit. So these green leaves, if I need to rotate them, I can do that. Just click and drag that green dot at the top, that's your rotation. And then if you want it to snap exactly horizontally, you hold your shift key while you're rotating that. All right, and then I've got a piece of pattern paper that I can cut these from. Now this is easiest if they're all the same weight of paper, and these ones are, they're all a 65-pound medium weight cardstock. Even my pattern paper is the same weight of cardstock. All right, so let's go ahead and get it set up for the send panel. I want to choose my material and making sure that all of these are showing up as bold red, that they're ready to cut. And I'm going to choose my material as pattern paper medium, 65-pound. That works really well for kind of a medium weight cardstock and a medium weight pattern paper. And so that's a default setting that you can use. If your mat is sticky and your blade is sharp, you'll probably be able to get away with a blade depth of 3. And then your speed, the default is 5 for your speed, but I think we can go a little faster, so I'll bump that up to 10. Force is 30, 1 pass. That all looks pretty good. And you would want to do a test cut and make sure that those are the right settings for you, for your condition of your blade and your mat. And I've already tested this, so we should be good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and start layering these on my physical mat, these various pieces of paper, and just make sure if I need to move anything over that I can. All right, so I've got my 15-inch mat here for the Cameo Plus. Let's take off that protector shield. And let's start arranging these on the mat. So I know that my flower is up here in the upper left corner. All right, so if I did all my measuring correctly, this is all gonna cut just fine. So now I'm gonna make sure that my rollers are set up for the 15-inch mat, so that's furthest extended to the farthest right arrow. That's good. And so I'll just load my mat. Okay, so we've already set up the cut settings, so I'm going to go ahead and hit send. All right, so let me make sure that that cut through. I'll just peel up the edges of a couple of these to make sure. Yep, looks like that cut through, so I'll unload that. Okay, so now we'll just take these pieces off. And we'll be able to get those ready to shape and fold. Some of these are pretty tiny, so it's nice to, oops, didn't get my orange in the right spot. I'll need to cut another one of those. It's nice to have a sticky mat, especially if you're working with small pieces and small scraps, so it holds those on there really well as you're cutting. All right, so I'll cut another orange and then we'll get to shaping. All right, we'll set these aside for a minute and just work on the tulip. So, all right, so to shape the tulip, it's pretty easy. We're just going to use a piece of foam. This is just craft foam, and you could use a mouse pad. What we're going to do is use the Silhouette scraper tool to put a crease in the center of each petal. So I like to use the center kind of as my center point where the corner goes in, and then just press down, so we're just putting a crease to divide each petal in half. And then we will use the spatula tool. We'll use the spatula tool to give a little bit of curl inwards. So it's already curling as we hold it this way where the creases are now up. You can just put a little curl, just roll your thumb along your scraper tool for each half of each petal. So it all continues to curl the same direction, and then we'll go and do the other half of each petal. So it's all curling and bending the same direction. Okay, and then just give another extra little pinch to each one of these. And tulips can be different shapes, so you can shape this however you want, but the tulip look I was going for had kind of a little pinch, a little point at the top. And then we want to give just a little bit of a curl into the middle. So if you've got this soft surface, you could use your thumb or a ball flower shaping tool. The other thing you can do is just kind of give a little bit of a curl, rolling right at this from the center outwards, just maybe a third of the way up the tulip. So it's all just kind of continuing to curl and bend in the same direction. All right, so now let's make our tulip center. So here's where it's nice to have some needle tip tweezers to pop out that little center cutout from the black. And that's where this little yellow folded piece is going to go. So the easiest way to do this is just do an accordion fold. So you're just bending back and forth to make this little accordion fold piece. And a little bit of, well, you'll bend back. There's a tiny perforation to make little tabs at the bottom. So you can bend those. That helps you know where to stop pushing this through. We'll bend those more in a second. So we've got our accordion fold, and it helps to put just a tiny dab of glue. That's why I like white glue in a needle tip applicator, but use what you've got. Just to hold those edges together. Okay, and so now we've got 3 pieces that kind of form this triangle shape that will slide up in through this hole. And this may be the toughest part of the whole project, is just getting that to fit in through there. All right, once you get it started in there, then you can just gently slide that black piece all the way down. And you're going to stop where those little tabs are at the bottom. These are little glue tabs. So you'll just want to splay those out. And then you can use hot glue or a little bit of white glue on the back sides of those glue tabs. So they press the yellow up against the black. All right, so there's the beginning of your stamen. And then we're going to want to add the orange piece underneath that as well. So we'll give another little curl. So curl these all the same direction. Use your little scraper tool because it's nice and small. Your little spatula tool. You're just rolling your thumb along it. You're not pulling because you don't want to tear those delicate pieces off. You're just kind of rolling. And you could also do that, just curl it with your fingers. That's fine too. Right, so you'll put, with the curves folding upward, you just put another dot of glue in the center, and then place your black and yellow piece on there. So basically the points of your black are going to go in between the gap between the orange little pieces. Okay, so now we've got our stamen, and we can add that into the center of our curled tulip piece. All right, so for our wire, you can use just, basically they need to be about 7 or 8 inches each segment. This is 24 gauge wire, which is really fairly thin. So you can take, a lot of times this comes in 16 inches, so just estimate, cut it in half, and that should work. If it's not exact, that's fine, because we will be trimming off a little bit of it. So once you have your 2 pieces of 24 gauge wire, you're going to take the tip with your needle tip pliers, and you're going to just create a loop at the top. And it doesn't have to be perfect. We'll do a loop at the top of each of them. And once you have your loop, then you can pinch it together, make it smaller if you need to. You're just going to fold it at a 90-degree angle. So that loop is now going at a 90-degree angle to the rest of it. And then this part is going to, you're going to slide the non-looped ends down through the hole of your tulip. And if that is fraying a little bit, maybe we'll just trim that up just a little bit. So both those wires go down the hole in the tulip. All right, and here's where I like to use hot glue. I'm going to add a little bit of glue on the underside of each loop so it can press against the flower and hold it in place. So just a little dot on the underside, and this will be, as long as you don't use too much glue, it'll be hidden. And I like to make the loops go in the direction of one of the petals so it doesn't stick out the side. Okay, so I'm just pressing that on there. And now we can add our center. So you can use hot glue or you can use white glue at this point. I think I'm going to use hot glue just to stick that on there into the center. and your little black tips need to kind of be at the center of these tulip petals as best you can. Okay, that's all the hard part. Now we're going to take 3 of these alternating petals and we're going to try and get them, the goal is to get them to look kind of closed. You can make your tulip, like if you like your tulip to be open, you could just leave it like that, and that's pretty too. It just looks like it's further along in its life cycle. But if you want it to look closed, we're going to take 2 of these and add just a little bit of glue at these kind of roundish center points, and then stick them to the petal on the outside between them. So 2 of these petals, just a dab of glue, and again this could be white glue or hot glue. The white glue is going to show less, but the hot glue is going to stick sooner, so you don't have to hold it as long. So give it a little press with your fingers inside there. And then your other petal of these triangle 3, again, just a little dab of glue, the part that kind of sticks out the most. Press this outer petal up against it. And flowers do not have to be perfection, so don't worry too much if you're not getting it exactly the right shape, because even in nature flowers aren't perfect. So get our last 2 little dabs of glue and press this last petal between it. So it goes up. So this one's a little bit open. You can have some of them more open, some of them more closed. And now we will add just a stem wrap and the leaves, and we will do that with floral tape. So I'm just gonna tear off a piece of floral tape, and to make floral tape stick to itself, you have to stretch it a little, and you can kind of warm it up with your fingers. But we're just going to stretch it and roll it against itself as you work your way down the stem. And we'll roll it, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 inches down. And if it tears as you're going, that's totally fine. You just start pressing again and keep rolling. Okay, and so then we can start adding these tulip leaves. And I like to put a little bit of a crease at the bottom. Again, you could use your soft mat to do that. Just crease in there. You could roll it against the tip to just kind of get that curl and curve started. And you don't need any glue. You can actually use the floral tape. So you're just going to pinch that around and use the floral tape to wrap and hold that. So give it a few wraps after you've got the first leaf on, and then so it's looking at the opposite direction, so the leaves are facing each other. See, I'll go down just a little bit farther. Have those leaves facing each other, and add your next leaf. And we'll just keep wrapping the floral tape around till we get all the way down to the bottom of the stem. And just stretch as you go to keep that tape, that wax on there activated so it's tacky and sticks to itself. Okay, and then these leaves get a little bit of a curl to them. I like to just take my fingers, or you could use your scraper tool and just curl them outward, and then you could leave them curling out like that if you like the look, or you could curl the tips again inward, like that. Okay, and so now if you want the tulip itself, you can just bend the wire. It's nice and malleable, so you can shape it and it looks natural. And then if you want to add it to a frame, we can do that. All right, so there's my frame. My tulip's going to be a little bit tall, so we'll trim that off. You could leave the wood natural. I'm going to use this white insert that I cut and have that as a white background. But to make the half of a vase, we're going to pick the side that you want as your pattern side, the one that you like to show, and start folding all these perforations down away from you. All right, and then there's these two little glue tabs here that are going to go underneath. So this piece will glue onto those glue tabs. So that gives you the shape of your half of a vase. And then these will get glued onto this background piece here. And I like to put it, I know that's the right size, so I'm going to take that out and not work with it while it's in the frame. Just about 1/4 of an inch from the bottom is where I want to place it, and then centered along there. I'll just add my glue to these glue tabs. All right, so if you're using liquid glue, it's going to take a little bit longer. You could use also a dry adhesive and just kind of press those glue tabs on there. If your fingers aren't long enough, it's nice to have this handy little tool to press those glue tabs down. And then the flower itself, we don't want it to be too tall. So if I stick it in there now, it's a little bit too tall. I'm going to take off maybe 3/4 of an inch, maybe a whole inch, just so it looks at a good height. And this can be hot glued into the frame or some kind of dry adhesive. And then we'll put a little bit of hot glue on the bottom of the tulip so it can sit in the frame. So you've got the one tulip you can have in there, it looks really cute, or if you make multiple tulips, you can just add them and have a cute little bouquet with more than one. Just nice and springy and colorful. Now if you want, you don't have to make the tulip at the size it comes in. This one, if you want to make what looks more like full-size tulip, you can go through the same instructions, but this is enlarged to about 175%, and I think I used 3 wires instead of 2 to make that thicker. But you've got your option, because in silhouette you can change your sizes and make as many as you want. Thanks for joining me today. Again, my name is Kelly Wayment and my website is findingtimetocreate.com. I would love to know if you want more tutorials like this or if you want specific flowers. I have a lot of flowers that I do. That's not the only thing I do, but I do love flowers. So put in the comments something more tutorials you'd like to see or specific flowers, and don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel.